So the war is over, is it? Funny how people think victory feels like fireworks, parades, confetti falling from the sky. But no real victory feels heavy. Your body's tired, your mind's torn, your soul's been dragged through fire. You won? Sure, but look at you. Scars, bruises, memories that won't let go. That's the price. The fine print nobody reads before stepping into the fight. Winning isn't the end of the story. It's the part where you finally face the silence. The part where you realize the battlefield may be gone, but it still lives inside you. Victory carries scars. That's the truth nobody wants to admit. People see the win, the final strike, the moment you rise above it all, and they clap, they cheer, they call you strong. But they don't see the cost. They don't feel the weight you drag behind the smile. Winning isn't clean. It isn't pretty. It isn't painless. It leaves marks, deep ones, marks that no trophy or applause can erase. Every war, every fight, no matter how glorious the victory looks on the outside, takes something from you on the inside. You can paint over it, laugh through it, pretend it's nothing, but the scars are there, carved into the flesh, carved into the mind, carved into the soul. The strange thing about scars is they don't just remind you of pain. They remind you of survival. They're proof that you've been broken, torn, burned, but still, you're here. Yet at the same time, they never let you forget what it cost. You run your fingers over them and feel the story underneath. The nights you wanted to quit, the moments you thought you were finished, the times you screamed into the dark with no one listening. Winning means you endured all of that, but endurance doesn't come without a price. The scars are that price. People love to romanticize battles. They tell you victory is sweet, that once you reach the end, the pain vanishes, replaced with joy. That's the lie. The pain doesn't vanish. It transforms. It becomes scars, silent souvenirs you carry forever. Sometimes they're visible, etched into your skin, like a roadmap of everything you've endured. Other times they're invisible, buried where no one else can see but you. Invisible scars are the cruelest kind, because they're always there, haunting you in the quiet moments, screaming when everyone else believes you're fine. The scars twist how you see the world. They change the way you move, the way you think, the way you trust. Every victory changes you, and not always in the way you imagined. You come out harder in some places, softer in others. You flinch where you never used to. You hesitate where you once charged forward. You laugh, but it's different, touched with something darker, something earned. That's what victory really gives you. Not freedom, not peace, but scars that remind you of everything you had to become just to get here. And the cruelest joke, the world only sees the medal, the crown, the headline. They clap for the win, not the wounds. They don't care what it took out of you. They just care that you came out on top. And you let them, because showing the scars feels like weakness. So you hide them, bury them under the smile, act like winning erased everything. But it didn't. It never does. Victory carries scars, and they don't fade just because people don't want to see them. Sometimes the scars ache, even more than the battle itself. In the fight, you're too busy surviving to notice the damage. But when it's over, when the noise dies and the dust clears, that's when the sting sets in. That's when the weight of every cut, every bruise, every broken piece of you makes itself known. And no matter how strong you are, no matter how much you fought, you can't hide from that pain. It's yours now, yours to carry, yours to remember. That's the hidden truth of victory. It doesn't set you free. It binds you to the scars you earned along the way. People think scars are ugly. They miss the point. Scars are stories. They're lessons burned into you so deep you'll never forget. They say, this is where you almost broke. This is where you bled. This is where you screamed but kept going. They're the marks of someone who didn't just fight, but survived. And yet they're also reminders that surviving always comes with loss. You can't come out of a war untouched. Something always stays behind on the battlefield, even if it's invisible. Victory isn't just about what you gained. It's about what you lost to get there. The scars are proof of that loss. They whisper in the dark. They ache when the world is quiet. They remind you that even when you win, you don't walk away whole. You walk away scared, marked, changed forever, because victory carries scars and scars never lie. Silence after battle is the loudest. You'd think once the war ends, the noise would fade, the chaos would dissolve, the screaming would finally stop. But no, that's not how it works. The silence that follows doesn't soothe, it suffocates. When the fighting is over, when the dust settles and the shouting dies, you're left with something far more terrifying than bullets or blades. Your own thoughts. That silence becomes an echo chamber, bouncing every memory, every image, every scream you thought you left behind right back into your head. During the fight, there's no time to think. You're too busy surviving, too focused on the next move, too lost in the madness to stop and feel the weight of it all. The noise shields you from the truth. It distracts you. But when the noise ends, when the battlefield goes quiet, that's when the truth comes crawling in. And it doesn't whisper. It roars inside your chest. The silence after battle is not peace. It's the moment when every buried scream claws its way to the surface. People see calm skies, empty streets, and they call it peace. But peace isn't just the absence of war. It's a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. When the world grows still, you see what's left of you, what's broken, what's missing. That silence doesn't pat you on the back and say, well done. It drags you to the ground and makes you relive every second. The face of every opponent, the sound of every crack, the blood on your hands. It all comes back louder in the quiet than it ever was in the fight. And that's the part no one prepares you for. They tell you the hard part is the battle, that the fight is the real struggle. But the real struggle comes after, when you're alone with yourself. When there's no one to swing at, no one to blame, no noise to hide behind. Just silence. And in that silence, the questions start. Was it worth it? Did I lose too much? Could I have done more? Should I have stopped sooner? The silence has a way of twisting the knife deeper than any blade in the fight ever could. It's easy to bleed in battle. You expect it. You're ready for it. But bleeding in silence, that's different. That's the kind of pain that doesn't show, the kind that eats you from the inside out. You smile for the world, nod, pretend to enjoy the victory. But inside, the silence is screaming, louder than any war drum, louder than any explosion, louder than anything you've ever heard. It's a noise only you can hear, and it never truly shuts up. And here's the cruel part. The world doesn't notice. To them, silence means peace. They see you sitting still, breathing steady, and they think you're fine. They think the worst is behind you. They don't hear the storm crashing in your head, the replay of battles you can't unsee. They don't hear the ghosts whispering your name in the dark. Silence hides it all, makes you look calm while you're burning alive inside. That's why it's the loudest. It traps the screams where no one else can hear them, leaving you alone with the sound. Some people can't handle it. They crave the fight again, just to escape the silence. Because as twisted as it sounds, chaos feels easier than calm. At least in battle, the enemy is in front of you, clear, visible. But in silence, the enemy is you. Your mind, your memories, your regrets. You can't swing a sword at those. You can't shoot them down. They follow you into bed, into dreams, into every quiet moment you try to enjoy. The silence turns every pause into a battlefield of its own. The silence after battle is the part no one talks about, because it doesn't look heroic. It doesn't look strong. It looks like sitting alone in the dark, clutching your head, wishing the noise would return, just to drown out the quiet. It looks like forcing a smile at people who think you've healed, when really, you're being eaten alive by the stillness. It looks like peace to everyone else, but to you, it's war wearing a different mask. And that's why silence after battle is the loudest. It doesn't end the war. It just moves it inside your head, where no one else can see and where the echoes never stop. Healing is part of winning. Strange, isn't it? People think victory means the fight is finished, the wounds are gone, the suffering erased. But victory doesn't magically stitch you back together. Winning doesn't heal you. Healing is the next battle. The one nobody talks about, the one that doesn't come with applause or glory. The war outside may be over, but the war inside begins the moment you try to pick up the pieces. Most people don't see it that way. They think once you've won, you're supposed to stand tall, unbreakable, smiling for the world. They don't see the limp in your step, the scars on your body, the cracks in your mind. They think the metal around your neck means the pain is gone. But the truth is, winning without healing is just surviving with wounds that never close. And wounds left open don't stay quiet. They fester. They rot. They poison everything you touch. Healing isn't optional. It's the only way victory actually means something. Healing is ugly. It's slow. It's painful. It doesn't feel heroic at all. In the fight, at least you had adrenaline. At least you had a reason to keep swinging. But in healing, you face the quiet, The memories, the broken parts of yourself that can't be patched up with bandages. The physical wounds might scab over, but the invisible ones, the ones carved into your chest, your mind, your soul, those take longer, and they hurt in ways you can't explain to anyone else. That's why healing feels like punishment, even after you've already suffered. And here's the cruel trick. If you refuse to heal, the war never really ends. You may have won on the outside, but inside, you're still bleeding. And bleeding from the inside is worse than any blade, because no one sees it, no one acknowledges it. No one claps for you while you fight it. You fight it alone. And most people lose that fight because they confuse surviving with healing. They think moving forward means they're fine. But all they're doing is dragging their broken pieces into the future, cutting themselves again and again with the shards they refuse to mend. Healing demands honesty. You have to admit you're broken, that you're tired, that you're hurting. That's the hardest part, because the world worships strength and despises weakness. So you hide the pain, pretend you're fine, smile through the agony. But every time you lie about it, you push healing further away. You can't heal what you won't face. And the longer you avoid it, the deeper the wound digs, until it becomes part of who you are. That's the trap. Victory gives you the illusion that you're whole, when really, you're just patched together with denial. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean erasing the scars or pretending the pain never happened. It means learning to live with it without letting it control you. It means facing the nights where the memories burn, the days where the scars ache, and choosing to keep moving anyway. It's not about being the same person you were before the war. You'll never be that person again. Healing is about becoming someone new, someone forged by the pain but not ruled by it. And let's not lie, healing hurts. Sometimes more than the fight itself. Because in the fight, at least you had a clear enemy. In healing, the enemy is yourself. Your mind drags you back into the past. Your heart reopens wounds you thought were closed. Your body aches long after the damage is done. Every step forward feels like pulling glass from your skin. But each shard removed, each scar accepted, each wound faced is a small victory of its own. Healing is a collection of those small victories stacked together until one day you realize the bleeding has stopped. The real strength isn't in the battle, it's in the recovery. Anyone can swing when the adrenaline is high, when the fire is burning, when the world is watching. But it takes something far greater to sit in the quiet, to face the nightmares alone, to stitch yourself back together piece by piece. That's the kind of fight no one applauds, no one writes songs about. But it's the only fight that proves you've truly won. Because healing is part of winning, and without it, victory is just another mask hiding the wounds that never went away. Strength isn't just surviving the war. Anyone can survive. Anyone can crawl through fire, drag themselves through blood, cling to life by their fingernails. Survival is instinct, a desperate hunger to keep breathing no matter the cost. But strength is different. Strength is what happens after the smoke clears, after the fight is finished. When the world expects you to rise, even though you're shattered. Surviving the war means you're still alive. Strength means you're still standing. Survival doesn't ask much of you. It demands grit, luck, timing, sometimes nothing more than sheer stubbornness. People survive by accident all the time. They slip through, they hide, they get pulled out by someone else's hand. Survival can be blind chance. But strength is deliberate. It's a choice. It's what you summon when there's no more adrenaline left, no enemy to fight, no reason to keep going, except the one you have to carve out of yourself. Strength begins where survival ends. That's why so many people confuse the two. They say, I made it through. I'm strong. But surviving doesn't mean you're strong. It just means you weren't destroyed. Strength is proven in how you carry the scars, how you rebuild with what's left, how you walk forward when every step still hurts. A survivor breathes. The strong endure. The strong rebuild. The strong face the silence, the emptiness, the aftermath, and refuse to be crushed by it. The war may have broken your body, but strength isn't about being unbroken. It's about walking with the cracks. It's about taking the shattered pieces and making something out of them, even when they don't fit together the way they used to. Anyone can wear a mask and pretend they're fine. Strength is ripping the mask off and saying, yes, I'm scarred. I'm bleeding. I'm changed, but I'm still here. That's not survival. That's power. And here's the cruel truth. The world only celebrates survival. They clap when you come home. They cheer when you say, I made it. But they don't stay to watch the nights you can't sleep, the mornings you can't get out of bed, the moments when the memories choke you. That part is left for you alone. No cameras, no applause, just you and your shadows. And that's where strength shows up. Not on the battlefield, not in the spotlight, but in the dark. When no one's watching, and no one would blame you for giving up. Strength is dragging yourself out of bed when your bones ache and your soul screams no. Strength is facing the mirror when you hate what looks back at you. Strength is choosing to live when living feels like punishment. That's not survival. That's defiance. Survival is clinging to life. Strength is demanding more from it, even when life doesn't want to give. Surviving the war doesn't mean you've conquered it. Sometimes it means the war follows you, lives inside you, whispers in your ear every night. And surviving that kind of war requires more than just staying alive. It requires building a new reason to live. That's the difference. The survivor carries the weight. The strong learn how to use it. The survivor hides their wounds. The strong turn them into weapons. The survivor avoids the memories. The strong stare them down and refuse to let them control the future. And the hardest part, strength doesn't come all at once. It doesn't roar. It doesn't burst into flames. It grows in the smallest, ugliest moments. In the tears you finally allow yourself to shed. In the pain you admit out loud. In the hand you accept when you swore you'd never need anyone. In the step you take even though your legs shake. That's strength. Messy, raw, fragile, looking, but stronger than anything survival could ever give. Anyone can survive the war. That's just making it through. Strength is what happens after. Strength is the choice to rise from the rubble, to build something out of the ashes, to carry your scars not as shame, but as proof. Proof that even when everything tried to break you, you didn't just survive. You learned how to stand again. And that's what strength really is. Recovery demands facing the wounds. People think recovery is rest, sleep, maybe a little time off, like the pain just melts away if you lie still long enough. But wounds don't heal by being ignored. They sit there festering, waiting, turning poison, while you pretend they're not real. Recovery isn't comfort, it's confrontation. It's dragging every wound into the light and staring at it until it stops owning you. You can't cover it with a smile, can't bury it under distractions, can't drink it away. Recovery means admitting you're still bleeding, then doing the painful work to stop it. That's why most people never recover. They'd rather hide their wounds than face them. They stitch on fake smiles, drown themselves in noise, act like victory erased the damage. But the wound knows, the body knows, the mind knows, and ignored wounds never disappear, they spread. What was once a cut becomes an infection. What was once a memory becomes a nightmare. What was once pain becomes identity. That's what happens when you refuse to face it. You become the wound. Recovery is brutal because it forces honesty. It strips away the armor you wore during the fight, leaves you exposed to the truth you tried so hard to avoid. It asks you to touch the pain, to dig into the scar tissue, to pull out the shards still stuck inside. It hurts worse than the original injury, because then you had adrenaline, purpose, distraction. Now it's just you, your wound, and the silence. And in that silence, you will either face it or it eats you alive. People confuse escape with healing. They run from the wound, thinking distance will save them. But the wound travels with you. You can change cities, change faces, change your entire life, and the wound still whispers in the dark. Recovery doesn't come from running. It comes from sitting down with the wound, naming it, accepting it, and then deciding what to do with it. That's the fight nobody claps for, the fight you wage in silence, the fight that never ends with a parade. Every wound demands attention. If you don't give it willingly, it will take it by force. You'll feel it in the way you snap at people you love, in the way you can't sleep, in the way your chest tightens for no reason. The wound makes itself known until you face it. That's the price of pretending. You delay recovery and double the pain. Facing it is terrifying, but it's the only way forward. Ignoring it is easier. But easier always comes back harder. And recovery doesn't mean erasing the wound. It means learning how to live with it. You can't uncut the skin, can't unburn the flesh, can't erase the memory burned into your head, but you can decide what happens next. Does the wound define you, or does it remind you? Does it control you, or does it teach you? That choice only comes when you face it. Without facing it, you don't have a choice. You're just ruled by it in the shadows. Recovery is ugly messy, exhausting. Some days you'll pick at the wound, and it'll bleed all over again. Some days it'll feel like it's closing, only to rip open when you least expect it. That's the process. Recovery isn't linear, it's chaos. But every time you face it, every time you refuse to run, every time you choose to sit with the pain instead of hiding from it, you move a little closer to control, a little closer to freedom. The wound is part of you now, whether you like it or not. Recovery isn't pretending it never happened. It's claiming it, owning it, and refusing to let it turn you into a victim forever. People think strength is in the fight, but true strength is in recovery, because recovery demands you fight an enemy you can't punch, can't stab, can't kill. The enemy is within, and the only way to win is to face it over and over until it no longer owns you. You ever notice how life has this strange way of pushing you into people's paths at the exact moment they need someone? Not a second earlier, not a breath too late. Right on cue, like some twisted play you didn't know you were starring in. You think it's random, accidental, but it isn't. No, it's orchestrated. Carefully, deliberately. You get pulled, shoved, thrown into someone else's story because you carry something they don't, something only you can give. And maybe you don't even realize it yet. Maybe you're too busy doubting yourself, calling yourself unworthy, when in reality, you've been handpicked. Chosen to step into the chaos of another soul and be the spark that flips their whole world upside down. You walk around thinking you're wandering, don't you? Like your life is just this messy trail of accidents, coincidences, and detours. You think the places you've been, the people you've met, the pain you've carried, were all just random events colliding in some cruel little joke. But deep down, you know better. You've felt it, haven't you? Those moments where everything lines up too perfectly. Where you bump into someone you shouldn't have, at a time you shouldn't be there, saying words you didn't even plan to say. That's not wandering. That's being placed. With precision. Like chess pieces on a board. The trouble is, you hate the idea of being moved. You want control. You want certainty. You want to know why. But that's not how this game works. You're not supposed to see the whole board. You're supposed to step where you're pushed and trust that the ground won't cave in beneath your feet. It feels unfair. I know. You want to believe you're the one choosing your path. But the truth is, paths cross because they're meant to. Not because you're clever enough to find them, but because you're carrying something someone else needs. And you're being dragged into position whether you like it or not. Think about it. The times you thought you were lost, weren't you actually being guided? You ended up in places that looked like accidents, but then, suddenly, someone there needed exactly what you had. A word, a gesture, a reminder they weren't alone. And you thought it was coincidence. No, it was orchestration. You're not wandering blind. You're a courier, carrying pieces of hope, fragments of light, messages that weren't even meant for you, but for the one you'd eventually meet. It's unsettling. isn't it? To realize you're not the center of your own story. That maybe, just maybe, your pain wasn't just about you. Maybe it was training, shaping, breaking you down, so you'd have the right words when you stood in front of someone else who thought they couldn't go on. Maybe the nights you cried, the wounds you hid, the scars you carry, they weren't wasted. They were forged into keys. Keys you don't even realize you're holding until you're face to face with someone whose lock only you can open. And here's the part nobody tells you. Being placed doesn't feel glorious. It feels inconvenient. You'll be in the middle of your own storm, drowning in your own chaos, and suddenly, there they are, someone desperate, someone lost, and you'll feel this tug inside, this unshakable pull that says, speak, stay, give them what you have. And you'll argue with it. You'll think, I'm not ready, I'm broken, I have nothing left to give. But that's the irony. The very cracks you despise in yourself are the exact openings through which your light leaks out. The things you thought made you weak are the things that make you perfect for the assignment. You're not wandering. You're being positioned. And sometimes that positioning hurts. It means losing people you thought would stay forever. Watching doors slam you thought should have opened. Finding yourself in places that make no sense at all. But those very losses, those very detours, are what line you up with the ones you were sent for. You're not being punished. You're being moved. Like pieces sliding into place for a moment you won't see coming until it's right in front of you. And when it happens, you'll know. You'll feel it. The words will spill out of your mouth without rehearsal. The presence of your scars will comfort them more than your polished wisdom ever could. And you'll realize you didn't wander here at all. You were placed here. Precisely. Intentionally. Because someone needed you more than you needed your excuses. What you carry isn't for you. And that's the part most people never understand. You walk through life thinking the weight on your shoulders, the scars on your skin, the fire in your chest, it's all yours to deal with. You think the lessons you've learned, the battles you've fought, the nightmares you've survived, were handed to you just to torment you. But no, that's not it. You've been carrying something that was never meant to stay locked inside. You've been walking around like a messenger who doesn't realize he's holding the letter that could change someone's life. The irony is, you probably look at yourself and think you're empty, broken, useless. But what if that's the disguise? What if the very things you despise about yourself are the things that make you the perfect vessel? Think about it. Every wound you've endured taught you something. Every betrayal sharpened your instincts. Every loss carved depth into your soul. And all of that isn't just for your survival. It's so when someone else is bleeding from the same kind of cut, you know exactly what to say, how to look at them, how to let them know they're not alone. You've been entrusted with more than you realize. The resilience you built in silence, the strength nobody saw you fight for, the wisdom you didn't ask for but bled for. That's not just your trophy case. That's ammunition for someone else's battle. You carry words that can pierce through despair, gestures that can lift someone who's sinking, presence that can steady a shaking soul. And you may think it's small, insignificant, but for the one who needs it, it's everything. Funny thing is, carrying something for others feels like a burden until the moment it's released. You'll spend years asking why you had to suffer so much, why you had to lose so much, why the weight never left your chest. And then, in an instant, you'll meet someone whose eyes mirror the same agony you once had, and suddenly it all makes sense. The burden becomes a gift. The pain transforms into proof. You realize the things you thought broke, you actually equipped you to be the one person who could reach them. And here's the part that stings. It's not optional. You can't bury what you carry. You can try to silence it, numb it, lock it away, but it leaks out anyway. In your tone, in your presence, in the way you look at people. Others can feel it, even if you never say a word. They're drawn to you. Not because you're perfect, but because something in you resonates with their hidden wounds. It's like a signal, a frequency only the broken can hear. They recognize the scars in you, and that recognition gives them hope for their own. What you carry isn't for your comfort. It's for someone else's survival. And yes, it's unfair. Yes, it feels heavy. Yes, it would be easier if you could just live for yourself. But you've been set apart for something bigger than easy, and the weight on you proves it. It proves you're trusted with something powerful, something that could shake another soul awake. Every story you've survived, every battle you've endured, every dark night that didn't kill you, it all adds up to this: you're a carrier of words that matter, of experiences that heal, of presence that changes atmospheres. The things you think are useless, they're weapons in someone else's war. The memories you wish you could erase, they're maps for someone else who's lost in the same wilderness. The tears you shed in silence, they're the empathy someone else will need when they can't stop crying. And isn't that something? To realize your life hasn't been random suffering, but preparation. That the weight you've cursed has been the very thing that proves you were chosen to carry what others couldn't. You're not empty, you're full. Full of stories, full of scars, full of fire. And none of it was ever just for you. Doubt has a way of crawling in like smoke under a locked door. You try to shut it out. You try to convince yourself you're strong, but there it is, whispering in your ear, twisting your stomach, slowing your steps. You start asking questions you can't answer. Why me? Am I really chosen? Do I even have what it takes? And the more you think about it, the heavier it feels, like every weakness, every failure, every scar you carry is proof that you're unworthy. That's how doubt works. It doesn't scream, it suffocates. It convinces you that what's been placed on you was a mistake. But here's the irony. Doubt doesn't cancel the assignment. You can feel broken, unqualified, completely unprepared, and still be the one sent. Because being chosen isn't about being flawless. It's about being willing. And willingness often shows up wrapped in fear. You think courage means never trembling, never second guessing yourself. But no, courage is showing up in spite of the tremble. It's moving when your legs want to lock. It's speaking when your throat burns to stay silent. Doubt is part of the process, but it's not the end of the story. The truth is, the ones who question themselves are often the very ones who can be trusted most. Because they don't take the weight lightly. They don't strut around assuming they're worthy. They wrestle with the responsibility. They feel the gravity of it, and that humility, that awareness, is exactly why they're chosen. You see, arrogance disqualifies people far quicker than doubt ever could. Doubt makes you careful, makes you lean on strength outside yourself, makes you remember that this isn't about your comfort, but about someone else's survival. And think about it. Doubt only shows up when something matters. Nobody doubts themselves over things that don't count. You don't stand in front of the mirror wondering if you're worthy to tie your shoes. No. Doubt creeps in when the stakes are high, when the outcome is bigger than you. Which means if you're doubting, it's because you're standing in front of something significant. It's because what's inside you carries weight, carries power, carries potential to alter someone else's life. But doubt doesn't just attack your worth. It also attacks your memory. It makes you forget what you've already survived. It convinces you that the same person who crawled through hell and made it out is suddenly too fragile for the task ahead. It blinds you to the evidence of your own history. All the nights you should have broken, but didn't. All the battles that should have killed you, but left you standing. Doubt thrives on amnesia. It needs you to forget how strong you really are, because if you remembered, you'd laugh in its face. Yet here's the beautiful twist. Doubt can become fuel. It keeps you leaning forward, keeps you desperate, keeps you hungry. The ones who think they've got it all figured out, they fall the hardest. But the ones who doubt, they prepare, they stay alert, they move carefully. Doubt keeps you from becoming careless with what you've been given. It may torment you, but it also keeps you sharp. So yes, you'll doubt. You'll wake up some mornings convinced you're not enough, convinced you should walk away, convinced somebody else would be better suited for the role. But walking away doesn't erase the call. It follows you, tugs at you, gnaws at you in the quiet hours. Because it was never about perfection. It was about obedience. It was never about you feeling worthy. It was about you being willing to carry what was placed in your hands. Doubt is a shadow. Nothing more. It looms large, but it has no substance. It can scare you, distract you, slow you. But it can't stop you unless you hand it the keys. And that's the secret. You don't have to feel worthy to be chosen. You just have to move, even if your knees are shaking, even if your voice cracks, even if your heart tells you to quit. Doubt may walk beside you, but it doesn't get to decide where you go. Fear, that ugly, trembling little thing that sits in the pit of your stomach, scratching at your ribs, whispering in your ear that you'll never make it. Fear is a master illusionist. It paints pictures in your head of disasters that haven't even happened yet, and suddenly your hands sweat, your knees buckle, and you stop before you even begin. That's the trick. It doesn't need to strike you down. It just needs to paralyze you long enough for opportunity to slip away. You think you're protecting yourself, but what you're really doing is handing your future over to shadows. And the funny part, most of the things you fear never even happen. You build castles of catastrophe in your mind, every brick laid by worry, every tower built from doubt. You rehearse failure like it's a script, playing it again and again until it feels like truth. Fear doesn't even need reality on its side, just imagination. And when your imagination gets hijacked, it's no longer a tool, it's a weapon against yourself. That's the cruel joke. You become your own jailer, locking yourself in cages made of thoughts. But what fear doesn't tell you is that it only shows up when you're close to something that matters. Nobody fears the ordinary. Nobody fears the meaningless. Fear prowls when you're standing on the edge of change, when you're about to step into something greater. That's when it slithers in, because it knows if you move forward, if you break through, the chains it's wrapped around you won't matter anymore. Fear fights hardest when the breakthrough is closest. It snarls, it bites, it threatens. But that desperation is proof that you're stepping into dangerous territory. For the fear, not for you. You've got to understand that fear is not an enemy to be destroyed, but a compass to be read. Wherever it's pointing, that's usually where your destiny lies. Fear only trembles in the presence of potential. If you're scared of speaking, maybe your voice was meant to shake nations. If you're terrified of failure, maybe success is hiding right beyond the risk you're avoiding. Fear reveals your battlefield, the exact place where victory is hiding. You think it's a warning sign, but really it's a map. And when fear comes, it never comes empty-handed. It brings along excuses. You're not ready. You're too weak. You'll embarrass yourself. Those aren't truths. Those are chains. Soft enough to wrap around your mind, but strong enough to hold you still. Excuses feel safe. They make sense in the moment. But when the years slip by, when the opportunities rot where you left them, you'll realize those excuses were the most dangerous lies you ever believed. Fear doesn't take your life in one blow. It takes it in small pieces, one excuse at a time, until you wake up wondering why nothing ever changed. And yet, there's a strange thing about fear. It can't survive exposure. Speak it out loud, drag it into the open, and suddenly it shrinks. Confront it head on, and it stutters. Walk toward the very thing you're afraid of, and you'll feel it crumble under your feet. Fear only has power in the shadows, where it grows bigger than it is. The moment you shine light on it, you see it for what it really is: smoke, a shadow on the wall, an empty threat that only carried weight because you bowed to it. But here's the real secret. Fear isn't the absence of strength. It's the proof of it. You don't fear what doesn't matter. You don't fear what you're unprepared for. The presence of fear is the clearest sign that you are carrying something valuable, something dangerous to the darkness, something too important to be left alone. That's why the resistance is so strong. That's why the whispers are so loud. Because deep down, fear knows the truth about you, a truth it hopes you never discover. It knows that if you ever push through, if you ever stop letting it decide for you, nothing could hold you back. So fear plays its game. It shakes your hands. It quickens your pulse. It keeps you awake at night rehearsing disasters that don't exist. But you've got to learn to recognize the game for what it is. Fear is loud because you're close, not because you're lost. It's shaking because it knows what happens if you keep going. It's trembling because your next step might just shatter the chains it spent years wrapping around you. Pain, that little guest that never waits for an invitation, always barges in, rearranges everything, leaves a mess behind. You try to shut the door on it, but somehow it finds its way in. People spend their whole lives running from it, numbing it, pretending it doesn't exist. But here's the funny thing. Pain is one of the only honest things left in this world. It doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't play nice. It rips, it burns, it crushes, but beneath all of that, it teaches. Pain is the teacher you curse in the moment, but thank years later when you realize everything it forced out of you was exactly what you needed. Most don't see it that way. They see pain as punishment, as proof that they've been abandoned, as evidence that life is unfair. And maybe life is unfair. Maybe it's cruel. Maybe it's merciless. But pain isn't always cruelty. It's often a kind of chiseling. Like stone in the hands of a sculptor, pain chips away at you, strips off the excess, the weakness, the illusions you cling to. Every blow feels like destruction, but what if it's construction? What if the very thing you're begging to stop is what's shaping you into something you can't even imagine yet? Think about it. The strongest steel doesn't come from gentle hands. It comes from fire. Heat, hammer, pressure, repeat. That's the process. And still, people want strength without the forge, wisdom without the scars, depth without the drowning. You want the crown without the thorns, the victory without the battle. But pain doesn't work that way. Pain doesn't hand out shortcuts. It drags you through the fire because it knows the fire is the only thing that reveals what you're really made of. And isn't that the part that terrifies you? Not the pain itself, but what it might uncover. Maybe you're afraid it'll show you just how fragile you are. Or maybe, just maybe, you're afraid it'll show you how much power you've been hiding. Because once you see that strength, once you realize you can survive what should have destroyed you, then you have no excuse left. Pain exposes the truth you can't ignore. It peels back the lies and leaves you standing bare with nothing but your raw self staring back at you. People who avoid pain live shallow lives. They keep everything safe, everything soft, everything predictable. And sure, maybe they dodge the bruises. Maybe they escape the sleepless nights. Maybe they even convince themselves they're happy. But deep down, they're empty. Because without pain, there is no growth. Without loss, no gratitude. Without breaking, no healing. A smooth path never made a strong traveler. It's the cracks in the road, the storms overhead, the nights you thought would never end. Those are the things that shape you. And let's not forget, pain doesn't always mean tragedy. Sometimes pain is the evidence of transformation. Think about the seed buried in the soil. It breaks apart before it grows. The butterfly thrashes in its cocoon before it flies. Even birth itself, the start of life, comes through pain. Every great beginning hides behind something that looks like an ending. Every new level of yourself requires shedding an old skin, and that shedding, it hurts. That's the price. That's the process. That's the proof. But what do most people do? They try to numb it. They run to distractions, addictions, anything that dulls the sting. But when you numb pain, you don't just numb the hurt. You numb the lessons, the strength, the awakening that's trying to claw its way out of you. Pain demands to be felt because inside its claws is the very thing you've been praying for. That strength you keep asking for. It's hidden in the trial you're trying to escape. That clarity you've been begging for. It's tucked away in the tears you won't let yourself cry. That destiny you're chasing. It's hiding in the very place you've been avoiding because it burns too much to stand there. The irony is, pain is proof that you're alive. Numbness is death in disguise, but pain means your heart still beats. Your spirit still fights. Your story is still being written. It's a reminder that you're still in the game. Still capable of change, still standing even when everything inside you screams to collapse. Pain is a signal, not an ending. It's the alarm bell of transformation, the toll of becoming. The sound of weakness being burned away so something unshakable can rise.